What's up, my friend? Hey, welcome to episode 143 of the Studio Sherpas podcast. I'm Ryan Coral, co-founder of Studio Sherpas, man on a mission to help you build, grow, and scale your video business. I couldn't be more excited and happy that you're here. When you DM me, you comment on my posts, you leave reviews on the iTunes store about this podcast, you buy my training, all of those things help me know that I am helping you. So thank you. I feel incredibly grateful to be able to do this work and to do it with you. So if you're not subscribed to the show, you can do that on YouTube at /Studio Sherpas, or just subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That would be amazing. And if I'm not doing my job, you can tell me, because I sort of feel like this is like, there's nobody here at my studio that's saying like, Ryan, the latest few episodes are terrible. They're garbage. So I only have you to count on to tell me that. So if there's something I can be doing better, if there are topics or things that you want me to talk about, then let me know, because I would be happy to entertain those. Side note, last week I talked a little bit about my eyeball. I did not get in a fight. I went to a wedding on Saturday and saw all these people that I haven't seen in a super long time. And the joke apparently with all of my friends is, Andrea hit you, didn't she? You had it coming for a long time. Like, what is that supposed to mean? I'm like the nicest guy. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I tend to run my mouth sometimes. But and she probably should have punched me. But I just had surgery. I had surgery on. They had to do some muscle reconnection inside of my eyelid, and it was amazing. And you should have seen it like a couple of weeks ago. It was massive. But here I am. This is what I look like. Don't mess around with me, because I have been working out and I can make you look like this, so don't you dare. And if you're listening to this and you didn't know that you could watch this, if you go to the show notes page, you can see the YouTube video, or you can just go to the YouTube channel. Anyway, I'm so glad that you're here. This episode, Jon Morgan, who has been a part of the Studio Sherpas community for a long time. I love this tribe. I love the things that I learn from the people that are inside of this community. I can't say it enough. You're going to get a lot out of this episode. One thing that I've known about Jon for a long time is he is so into sales. Like when you talk to, like when I first heard him, I was like, dude, like you talk about sales way more than like, or like, you know, he knows all the words, like the buzzwords inside of sales. And he is a smart guy. And I love what he brings to the table for us today, because sales is the thing that we probably, I think most, if we didn't have to do sales in this work, it would be so much easier, wouldn't it? So we're going to hit sales head on today. I was finally able to meet Jon face-to-face at the Onward Summit, the workshop that we held earlier this summer. Super fun to actually well, I'd already put a face to the name, but to actually give him a hug, that was probably my favorite part. So today's episode is all about humble beginnings. I love this part of his story. I actually did the same thing. So we all have such great and sometimes humbling stories of how we started our business. And there's lots of stories there. So we also talk about what it means to be front of mind. Like, what does that even mean in the work of owning a business and trying to get more sales, and how being front of mind can actually mean the difference between $0 and $100,000. You're going to want to hear this. Also, the 3% and how we're spinning our wheels selling to the wrong audience, and how important it is to identify the 3% versus the 97. And then lastly, how important a CRM is. Maybe you have no idea what a CRM is. So we're going to talk about that and why you really need to think about adding one into your tools of what's going to make you a business that can grow. And if you aren't growing, then I think you're dying or you're shrinking or something like that. And it's just not good. Because in our businesses, in some way, shape, or form, we need to be moving forward. We need to be growing, we need to be more confident. We need to be able to charge more money. We need to make more money, be more profitable. Not just like charge more money, but be more profitable in the way that we are selling and making money. That doesn't make any sense, but I'll just leave it in because that's just kind of, it is what it is. Anyway, Jon has some solid ideas and experience in the world of sales, and I think you're going to walk away with some new ideas on how you can approach selling without feeling salesy. If you are in a similar spot where I was not even that long ago, I've built this business. I've been doing this for 15 years, and we consistently on the regular are booking clients for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $50,000 jobs. And but we weren't doing it. It hasn't always been like this. So if you feel like you're terrible at selling, if you feel like your work is good enough to sell on its own, or you're just not comfortable to kind of like go out, and you don't want to come across like a jerky salesperson, I want to invite you to a free workshop that I'm hosting where you're going to learn how to get even bigger clients and bigger budgets, and all of your dreams will come true. Okay, well, just making sure you're listening. But seriously, come to the workshop. You can find the workshop. You can find us. You can find me. You can go to the workshop at studiosherpas.com/workshop, and I'm going to share some super actionable things that you can do that will help your business. It's free, and if you hate it, I will give you your money back. Oh, wait, I'm just making sure that you're paying attention again. With that, let's jump into my interview with Jon Morgan. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Storyblocks. Head to storyblocks.com/Studio Sherpas to learn more about Storyblocks video. What's up, my friend? Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Studio Sherpas podcast. With me today is Jon Morgan, who is a professional athlete. Just kidding. Jon, oh man, the jokes, I can feel it. They are right here on the tip of my tongue. Jon is the owner, founder of JM Films. He is one of the top production companies in the city of St. Louis in the state of Missouri. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Man, I'm nailing it. And he has worked with clients such as the Microsoft, the Mastercard, and the NHL in just a few short years of him being in business. Jon, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence today. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Probably more kind than what is deserved, but always happy to be here. Enjoy being a part of the community the last several years, and so always happy to share my journey.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's what so part of the goal of this community, of this podcast, is people that are like you and me. I have authors on the show. I have people that speak to hundreds of thousands of people a year on the show. And then I got, like video studio owners like you and me. We're just kind of like
way less cool guys. Is that what you're saying?
So, but the beautiful thing is people really appreciate hearing other perspectives. Like, what are people doing that is working in their video business? What are some of the pitfalls, the things that, you've fallen flat on your face, in how you've gotten up and kind of learned from those falling downs. And that's just good. That's relatable stuff. That's how we can be encouraged, and that's how we grow, by learning from the mistakes that we make ourselves. But if we can help accelerate people's learning by sharing our own journeys with them, I think that is gold. And I have learned so much from so many other filmmakers, and I have learned so much from all of the terrible mistakes that I've made in my own business. But we're not here to talk about my mistakes today. Now we're here to talk about your mistakes.
That could be a whole nother podcast within itself. All the mistakes I've made with JM Films or less.
Right. That's what Jon said earlier. He said, hey, this could be like a 4-part, all the mistakes I've made.
What not to do.
Yeah, that's right. I think we're at 100 episode 140 or somewhere around there. And it's like, okay, so there are so far 140 chapters of many mistakes that Ryan has made in his video business. So we're going strong,
Right.
So give us a little picture about, you've got really big clients. I'm assuming you have some small clients. Like, what is, give us a better picture of what you do on a day-to-day basis and who you serve and what you're getting excited about these days.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of back up a little bit and give you the 1,000-foot view of kind of
Man,
where.
this is my show. You're not allowed to take the reins and change direct. You answer my questions, okay? I'm just kidding.
Uh,
You do
because
you, man.
my journey into video business ownership was definitely less typical than maybe some. So in my former life, I was actually going to be a pastor and a counselor. So I got involved with video and digital media back in junior high, making some highlight videos for a church camp that a buddy and I went to in the summer, and sold those highlight videos to the campers at the end of the week. So that was my first claim to being an entrepreneur right there, ripping some kids off with some crappy videos. But come a long way since then. But really, I took some classes to learn video. Never planned on doing it professionally as a career. Of course, being a movie maker in high school sounds awesome, but really felt like the Lord was calling me to do more ministry, and then really had a passion for counseling and psychology, and so was preparing myself more for that in terms of school. And did my undergrad in counseling psychology, and was planning to pursue graduate school in counseling and theology as well. Then life happens, things change. Graduate school plans didn't really happen the way that I hoped that they were going to, and met my wife, and she's from here in St. Louis. And so I was desperately trying to get here. And so the only job I could get was working with her dad at a plastic company, of all companies in town. And so he offered me their marketing manager job because he knew I could use Photoshop and knew a little bit about Premiere Pro. So I
What else
hopped
do you
on
need to
that.
be a marketing manager?
Right.
What else do you
So
need?
I literally bought a marketing 101 textbook instead of reading it. So I did that for a couple years, and really just did all their in-house design and everything. They were going through a lot of transitions, downsizing. We both ended up getting let go about 4 years ago. And so it was leaving that job that I was like, well, crap, don't have anything to fall back on. Graduate school plans didn't work out. So what am I going to do now? So then that's when I was like, hey, maybe I'll start my own thing. And surely starting a business can't be that hard, right? And so that's, excuse me, that's when I started JM Film and Design. So I was going to be the full service creative agency. And surely that's unique in 2015 at the time. And to my dismay, it only took a couple of Google searches later to realize that I was not the only one in St. Louis with that same idea. And in fact, I was the last one to the pool, to the party with that idea. And so it was really rough. Just trying to be the jack of all creative trades. It was just a race to the bottom in terms of price. And I remember getting beat up over $100 logo job and didn't even get paid for one of them. And so I was, realizing quickly that I needed to figure out a different strategy if I was going to, be successful at this. So what I noticed among all of the other agencies that I was competing with for the same work was that they did everything but video. Or if they did do video, then they didn't. Most of them didn't do it in house. They partnered with someone else to do that. So I was like, well, I know video, or thought I knew video at the time. So I was like, what if I just focus on video and lop everything else off? Because I felt like I was mediocre at a lot of stuff, but not really great at one thing. I could do pretty good logos, a pretty good website, a pretty good this, a pretty good that, but not really good at any one thing. And so that's when I decided to rebrand to JM Films, focus on becoming, a production company. And that's been the exclusive focus of the last 3.5 years. And then, so now it's been a wild ride, the last 3.5 years, just now doing video and realizing, okay, and figuring out how do I be different than other production companies? How do I survive in the production world space? Because it's certainly just as competitive in different ways. And so that has been a humbling journey, to say the least, of just, lots of trial and error, figuring it out. And so that's kind of, a little bit about my background, how I got to being a video business owner. So now to get to your current question about kind of who we work with, of course, like a lot of production companies, it's a little bit industry agnostic. We can work with just about anyone, as you guys know. Over the years, I've tried to narrow it down a little bit more and concentrate my efforts on some industries a little bit more than others. Because like when I first started, I joined a whole bunch of chambers of commerce and thought that, hey, that's going to be awesome. They don't have a video guy, so I'll be their video guy. And then realized it was just a whole bunch of businesses looking for $500 videos. And I was not going to make a bunch of money off of that. So over the years, I've focused my efforts on 3 primary markets. The first is our direct-to-client work. So I consider these what I call high-end professional service firms. So we do a good amount of work in the legal, financial, medical, architecture, engineering, construction, manufacturing. Private schools is another market that's kind of lumped in there as well. Basically, the common denominator that all those industries have is what they sell costs a lot of money. So I realized early on that selling video services to someone who's a lot more expensive than you are is a lot easier conversation than selling video services to someone whose product or service is a lot less expensive than yours. So once I kind of figured that out, that was a big business tip for me that I learned. So I'm able to kind of convey the value of video and also put it in a perspective of ROI for them a little bit easier. If I could say, hey, if this one brand video project helps you bring in at least one new client, it's going to pay for itself tenfold or hundredfold, depending on how much their average client size is or, what their average revenue per client is. So those are industries that I do most the direct-to-client work in. The second market that I focus on that's growing is other marketing advertising firms. So who used to be my competition, now we're some friendly business partners, if you want to look at it like that, where we're starting to develop more and more relationships with marketing advertising agencies, and so they'll bring us on, they'll partner with us whenever they have client video projects that may be outside of their wheelhouse. Because I've learned that most agencies, they don't do it in-house, and they're all different in terms of their experience with video. Some have lots of experience with video, do it all the time. Some don't have it, don't do it at all, have no experience with it. And then the other market is we'll actually subcontract for other production companies. So we get contacted semi-frequently by other production companies who may have local productions in the area they need some production help on. So we'll subcontract just production, whatever they need for their project. So those are kind of the 3 primary revenue streams for the business right now.
That's awesome. What was the thing that inspired you to hone in on those 3 markets? And the reason why I ask that question is because I just feel like a lot of people probably just say like, yeah, we do all of those things. We do direct to client, we do marketing, we'll hook up with agencies and then we'll subcontract. What was it for you that made you say like, I need to put some flesh behind this and define these like this?
A lot of it's just trial and error and experience. These are a lot of the industries that we have had clientele in. So when I go back and do some strategic planning and look back, okay, what industries have all of our projects come from? Where have we already had success? A lot of those industries, make up our portfolio. So it's like, well, if I know that it's easier to sell a video to an industry that we've already worked in, then why don't I just focus on these industries more instead of trying to pioneer new paths in every possible industry out there? Because it's a lot, as it's a lot easier selling to industries that you've already worked in. So it's like, what if we just deepen our experience in these particular industries? It tend to be a little bit more successful. And something else that helped me think about this strategy was, in terms of business model, okay, you can either sell your product directly, which is what we typically do the most of. However, I try to start thinking outside the box and think of other industries that make products that fit into other people's services or products. Okay, so think of like the straw industry. Okay, you're getting a lot of flack right now, but if I was a straw manufacturer, I could sell straws myself, but I could also make straws that I could sell to cup companies. and then they use my, they would buy my product to put in their product and sell. So it's an additional stream, revenue stream. So I started to think about that in terms of video, and thinking of like, okay, what industries utilize video in their services already that I could be a supplier for, basically, and kind of be baked in with them. And so far, that has been, been more of the marketing and advertising route. For those that do video in their service, we can be a supplier to them. So I'm always trying to think kind of outside the box on like what other industries utilize videos that we could be a supplier for, in addition to being a direct provider for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I was having a conversation with Tyler, our new operations director, earlier this afternoon. And I was saying, when we launched our corporate brand 5, 6, 7 years ago, holy cow. One of the first clients that we got was a PR firm. And, we were, prior to doing corporate stuff, we were doing majority weddings. So we were doing 30 to 40 weddings a year. And we were charging, on average, I think we were doing like $7,000 per wedding. So we were doing pretty well within the wedding work. Well, then, we ended up doing work for this PR company, and they have a bunch of clients, right? So we're not doing videos for the PR company. We're doing videos for their clients. And, that first year, I think it was like 4 or 5 months left in the year when we started working with them. We did like $70,000, $60,000 or $70,000 worth of business with them. And I was like, that was like the equivalent of 10 weddings.
Right.
And all I had to do was win over one client. I didn't, every time we were working with a wedding client, a direct to client, I was having to convince them, or like, here's my spiel, here's why you should hire us, here's the value, here's blah, blah, blah. So spending an hour at least, with every potential client, and then everyone that, actually booked us. And here I was like, we won the client over once, and then they were just telling their clients, like, you guys need video, and this is who you need to hire.
Right.
That model, then, then we hooked up with a different agency, and then we worked with another agency. So I was just like, man, if I could just like befriend agencies and do work for agencies, they're doing all the hard work of like telling their clients, hey, these are the guys you need to hire, and these are the kind of budgets that you need. But like, man, that's like amazing. And so anyway, that model I just think is solid. If you're listening to this and you're just like, man, I don't know, I'm having to resell myself every single time. That's a great model where you don't have to resell yourself every time.
And there's pros and cons to every approach, so there's not a magic bullet out there. So while on the upside, agencies provide, more of a long-term continual relationship, multiple projects over time, which is the upside to those, there's a downside. There can be downsides to that as well. Where I've had some not so great agency experiences where, things can get a lot more complicated with agency projects because there's a lot more people involved, and making sure client, expectations are, understood, and managing expectations of projects and deliverables of projects, and, everything. And also, those relationships take a lot of time to develop, unless an agency has got a hot project, a hot need right there in front of them, and you just happen to contact them at the right time, more than likely, it's going to take a while to develop that relationship with them. And then they'll finally call you up and say, hey, we've got this small little thing, may not be much, but you jump at the first opportunity and try to show them, your reliability or quality of work, so that you can, be a reliable vendor for them. And that's how we've grown. But it's also a volume game. So it takes a lot of work to be developing relationships with lots of people, because it is just a kind of a volume and a numbers game. The more agencies you have relationships with, the more, work you have potential to get from them. But, it takes time, and not everything's a perfect go.
Yeah. To come full circle, the reason why we were talking about this PR firm, because we were sharing like big wins, and I said, oh shoot, like I just got an email from this agency. So fast forward 7 years later, they've got an $80,000 project that they want us to do. And the way that this came about was, I don't know, 8 months ago, I reached out to them and I just said, hey, let's work on a project together. We'd love to do something with you guys. They got back to me and they said, hey, we'd love a short little video for this contest thing, or this award ceremony. I said, hey, let's totally do it. We'll do it for free. All you need to do is get us another client. Like, cause we haven't worked with them. We haven't done any work with them in probably 2 years. And I said, we'll do this short little video for you guys for free. Just find us a client. And I know this gal, she's been there for a few years. So I can totally say that, it's not weird or anything like that.
Right.
And she's like, okay, well, like, what's the value of, like, what kind of client would you want? I'm like, hey, we'll do this video. And literally it probably cost us not more than $1,000 to do this project. And I think I said, if you got us a client for like $7,000 or $8,000, that it would be amazing. We'd totally be super happy that we did this video for you guys. Come, a couple months later after we did deliver, they said, hey, we've got the project for you guys. Let's get on the phone. And I just had another phone call with them early this morning. They're like ready to move forward. And it's an $80,000 project. So I say all that to say, staying front of mind with your past clients, reaching out, saying, hey, how's it going? Is there anything I can do for you? That kind of stuff. And then also like considering trade. We don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but that's where this kind of came from.
It can be an effective and strategic, tool when done, correctly. Yeah. So, I've used trade, barter things to, kind of get some opportunities that maybe otherwise I wouldn't have had. So, like you're saying, I don't want to get on that rabbit hole, but it can be an effective strategy depending on how you're approaching the situation. But, I've had a similar thing where, I reached out to this huge agency in town that they do the commercials for Enterprise and, lots of other like big national brands. And, here I am, this peon, like, they don't know who I am and compared to, with the stuff that they're doing, but, reached out to them cold email, and leveraged actually a kind of a client relationship they have with someone else to get a meeting with them and said, hey, your client told me to reach out to you guys, to set up a meeting with you, because I had actually reached out to Enterprise originally since they're headquartered in St. Louis, and they directed me to this agency. And so I kind of leveraged that to get in the door with this agency. And so we had a meeting and, it went fine, but then I didn't hear anything for probably 6 or 8 months after that. And then I get a phone call or an email, hey, we've got this emergency, little shoot, come up, wanted to see if you could help us with it. So, of course I just drop everything and give them the best price that I can and do a great job. And now, we've been getting consistent, work with, from them for the last 6-8 months now. And talking about some bigger things. So you never know what can come of those things, but again, it just takes time. And like you're saying, to follow up. And that's something that I've noticed that a lot of video business owners don't do really well at, which I've tried to do as good of a job as I can about, is more of like the follow-up and the sales side of things. Because, with me and starting my business, I wasn't the real, like passionate filmmaker wanting to branch out on his own and, make artsy stuff and, want to be the next DP and all that. Like I basically knew nothing about how to run a video business. I just knew I needed a job. And so, it was like, I got to figure out how to sell video and become a business, or I'm going to have to be looking for another job. So, I started working with business coaches and reading sales books and figuring out more on like the sales and the business side of like, okay, how do I actually grow this and get revenue and get clients and everything? And so that's something that I think has really helped me grow a lot relatively quickly in these first few years, is just really buckling down and trying to, learn as much as I can on the business and the sales side and get really good at that. Joining communities like the Sherpa group, kind of learning, pulling from all these different resources that I stumble across. And that's really helped. So, now more of my role is focused more on the sales and business side more than the project and the creative side, because, you can't be good at everything. So my real value to the company is more on the sales and business side, and then bringing those projects in so that I can hand those off to the creative guys and say, here, kind of run with that. And then I'll focus on bringing the other stuff in.
Yeah. That's good. That is definitely one of the things that I appreciate about you so much, is that you just are hungry to learn, and you've been super involved in the stuff that I've been teaching, and you've just been a part of it. I feel like pretty
early on, really.
Which is great. I love that. It's super encouraging, and to just to hear you talk about the things that you do, I'm like, oh, dude, I love your perspective, because you sound like me. I'm just kidding.
Right.
So do you remember, like, how did you find Studio Sherpas? Did
I mean, it's been several years now. So I I think I was just Googling like, business stuff for video production companies, or, business training for video production companies, and, stumbled across the page, and I was like, what in the world is this? And somehow, fell into your trap. So now 3 years, probably 2 or 3 years later, here I am. But
John, he attended the summit that we held here in Detroit.
I did. So Ryan is real. For those who have not met him, he is a real person. He's not just a video.
That's
but
right.
Yeah, that was a really great opportunity to get to meet people in person, meet you in person, share, each other's, highs, lows, struggles, things that people have been successful at, not so successful at. And that's been another thing that I feel like has really helped me a lot, is really just not only trying to learn from the mistakes that I make myself, but really being humble and teachable and open to the experiences of others, and really trying to be, really proactive with that. So I spent a lot of time, I even still do, so it's not former, but more time in the first couple of years, like taking other business owners out to lunch, like asking them, trying to learn from them, whether they're agency owners or just, whatever business owner, because like just really having that desire to like learn from other people's experiences, I think is a way that we can acquire a lot of wisdom, from other people's experiences. So there was one agency owner in particular that I connected with early on, that he became kind of a mentor to me. We would meet for coffee, and he doesn't do video. So, of course, secretly I was like, well, let me do video for you. But, he just really shared so much wealth of wisdom and knowledge with me over his 20 years now of running his, high-end agency. I just really gleaned off a lot of things from him. So that would be another recommendation, to people, listening, watching, just really try to soak up as much information and learning and wisdom as you can from other people, because you're going to learn a lot, not only from your mistakes and the things that you do well and maybe didn't do well, but also asking others like, hey, what are some big things, that you learned from? What were some pivotal things that made a big difference in your agency? What were some mistakes that you made that you wish you would have done differently? And you'll learn a lot that way.
Yes, 100% agree. I mean, 1,000%. Like soaking all of that up is incredibly valuable. And I think the turning point for me, because I've, ever since launching my first business back in 2004, learning has been a huge part of that, being teachable, wanting to grow. But then the other part that has added so much is when I decided to step out and start offering my opinion, and or sometimes it was, helpful advice or whatever, but putting yourself out there for others, so that, we're not just receiving, but like that a natural part of who we are and what we're about is trying to help other people. Right. So John, even in this, when you're hanging out with this guy who has this agency or whatever, and he's giving you a ton of stuff, I'm certain that there are things that you are really good at that he's able to, or has been able to learn from you as well. But a lot of times we don't think like that. We think like, oh, I'm meeting with, somebody, this person is my mentor. But until we get the courage or the boldness or the, idioticness or whatever that's inside of us that just says like, hey, here's a thought that I have, like based on what you're saying. I know you didn't ask me for my opinion, but here's what I'm thinking. We have so much to offer that we just don't think about it. We don't believe it, whatever the case may be. But the truth is we all have so much to offer from what we've learned, from what we've experienced, from the wins that we've had, from the losses that we've had, that a big favor that you can do for the world is to just speak up and to share. Sometimes your ideas are going to be like squashed, whatever.
Right.
Other times, like that's the thing that somebody else needed to hear. The thing that happened to you, it's not just for you. It's a lot of times it's on its way for somebody else.
Right, absolutely, and I've tried to make that a point to share as much as I can, whether that's people that I meet with here locally. There's been several video guys that started businesses that reminded me of when I started off, and so I have met with him for lunch and coffee and tried to share with him all my mistakes and things that I did wrong. But then also even through the community online and Facebook, and guys will ask me for I've posted a lot of stuff about sales stuff, so they'll ask me for calling scripts that I've written or whatever it may be. And so I've really tried to like you're saying, like just provide as much as I can from my experiences and say, hey, here's what's worked for me, and watch out for this or whatever, and take it take it or leave it. So I think it's also kind of fulfilling in a way to kind of give back when you've been given to.
Yeah.
When people pour into you, it's rewarding to kind of help and give back to others when you see them in similar positions.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I will be right back with my interview with Jon Morgan right after this. Hey, if you want to make more money in your video business, you got to work smarter, not harder. And as I've learned that, I have come full circle in how I view stock footage. Stock footage used to be the worst, literally the worst. Terrible quality and super small selection. There have been so many projects where we just needed one shot of something pretty specific that we didn't get for whatever reason, or the client just requested totally last minute. I'm sure that's never happened to you, right? Well, someone turned us on to Storyblocks years ago, and it has really added to our edits without breaking the bank and without compromising the quality of the production. They have an enormous library of stock footage, and with the unlimited video plan, you get access to everything, including HD and 4K footage, After Effects templates, motion backgrounds, and more. We have saved our clients and ourselves a ton of money, and we saved a couple of projects that needed that one special shot. Use your content anywhere you like, including YouTube. All content is royalty-free, so you can use it for commercial and personal projects. And new content is added regularly, so there's always something fresh to download. Head over to storyblocks.com/Studio Sherpas to get all the stock footage, audio, and images you need. One thing I don't like is I feel like you're competing with my beard.
Not quite as much. I trimmed it down some, so I'm a
lot better than I can see mine. I don't appreciate that.
You always look better than me, Ryan, though, so don't worry.
Oh, okay, all right. That's what I was fishing for. So, give us an idea of your studio, the makeup of employees. Are you by yourself? What do you look like?
So in terms of the team size, right now it's been me full time, and then I've got a part-time girl who helps with our content marketing, social media, blog posts, content marketing, stuff like that. Gone through a lot of transitions when it comes to the team. So earlier on, a couple years ago, I brought on a full-time production guy. I've had tried hiring a few account sales people. Those didn't work out. So gone through some transitions, and now I'm in a place where I'm trying to be a lot more conservative, with growing the team, and really making sure that it's a wise move strategically, for the business. Because I think earlier on I was just like, yeah, let's try it. Let's hire people, and let's, which is not necessarily bad, but you just want to make sure that you're being wise about that and you're being strategic with that. So I'm at the point now where, I'm looking at pulling the trigger on bringing on a director in-house, but was still giving that a little bit more thought and prayer if now the time is the right time for that. In terms of the office, we actually just moved offices here in St. Louis, so I've been in a couple different buildings, but most recently there was an opportunity actually to move in and share space with one of my competitors. So a really big production company here in town opened up one of the floors of their building into a co-working space. And so I've had a good relationship with them over the last few years. And they've actually referred me some business from time to time that's not been a good fit for them. And so when this came about and I was looking to get out of my previous space, everything just kind of worked. So we just moved in here a few weeks ago. And so this is presenting a lot of opportunities, because not only potential, work from them that may not be a good fit, kind of trickles down to me. But they've got a studio here that that I've got access to. They've got a lot more gear that I have access to if I ever needed rent it for shoots, for stuff that I may not have. And just presented a lot more, kind of resources and opportunities. So I've got a four-person office now here at this new building to allow for a little bit more growth as the team grows.
Yeah, that's great. That's helpful.
Starting out, I was in my I was in my wife and I's bedroom, in a little nook by the window. So I quickly learned that I was not the best person to work from home. So ever since then, I got out.
Yep, that's good. What advice would you have for yourself for when you first started out?
There's lots of things, but one thing that I always am shocked that I didn't really do when I first started was have some kind of plan. I just really kind of struck out on my own and started the business without giving much thought to what a business model was going to be. How do I think I was going to get clients? That type of stuff. And I've learned a lot of that along the way through hard knocks. But I think I definitely would have started in a much better position had I, had someone help me, or at least do more research on just trying to have somewhat of a plan. Obviously, it's going to change and evolve, and it's not going to be perfect the first time. But being a little bit more strategic with that, right at the beginning, would have definitely been helpful, rather than just kind of being a newly born deer stumbling around and then figuring out where not to step.
Yes. I think, man, I love thinking about this because, part of that, having a plan, me being 15 years in, I'm like, oh yeah, like you got to have a plan. I had a potential client come to our studio today, and I was just asking them, like, well, what's your plan for this thing? Like, are you guys going to do this on your own, or do you want help, directing this piece? And what is your plan? So for me, it totally makes sense to say, like, well, what's your plan? What are your goals? Like, who do you want to work with? What kind of jobs do you want to get? What size clients? What industries get you excited? Like, all of those questions that, for me now today, as we move forward, it totally makes sense. And it would be ridiculous for us to just start doing something. It just like, hey, we're going to try this and let's just go that way, without understanding, like, well, hey, we have to make this much money per month and we have to have this many clients. You want to go way over there, Ryan, and we don't even know if those people hire for video. So what the heck are you doing? I say all that to say, like, back on day one, so much of like not having a plan is like, you get to learn, hindsight. It's like, well, shoot, I never want to work with these kind of clients. I never want to do this. Like, so there's a beauty in, definitely today, like, in you too, like having kind of an expectation of how much money you need to make per month and what you need to do to get there. You have to have a plan.
Right.
At least for me, when I started out, I didn't have to make any money. I was making $11 an hour at this college, and to replace that income, my plan was to make slideshow videos, to scan photos and to put them into iMovie. That was my plan. So I was not shooting for the stars, but it was through doing that I got to learn, like, oh my gosh, if I have to scan another photo and do another photo slideshow, I'm going to kill myself. This is the worst thing ever. So, and I, early on, I'm like, I'm just going to, whatever comes my way. And now I can really define and say, I never want to do these kind of jobs. I never want to work with these kinds of clients. And here is the path moving forward. Here's where we want to go. So I'm not against you. I think that totally, yes, having a plan early on. I just know from experience, had I had a plan, there's a lot of things that I would have just been like, oh, I learned a lot from not having a plan.
Because whether or not you have a plan, you're still going to make a lot of mistakes.
Right.
And so just because you put together some thoughts and ideas on paper, doesn't mean that you're going to be foolproof anyway. So, having some kind of business plan, outlining some kind of business model, having someone, come alongside you. I've worked with several business coaches and consultants to learn these things along the way. And they kind of showed me, okay, here's how you put together a loose, business model. Even though I still have that on paper, doesn't mean that I've stuck 100% to it. Things are going to change, things are going to evolve. You have to be able and willing to adapt to market changes and demands.
Yeah.
Because if you're a business that only does one thing and one thing only, and you don't ever change and adapt that to the market and what people are needing, then you're not going to stay in business very long. Yeah. So there's a balance with that. Having a plan, but also being flexible and also being nimble with that plan as well. Is really crucial because, when I first started out, I only wanted to do brand videos, for companies. And while we still do some branded content, I don't think I would still be where I'm at right now had I just stuck to that so, held on to that so tightly, because when it comes to video, you have to be able and, willing to do other types of content as well to service different needs and service different types of clients. So it's definitely a learning, experience along the way, no matter what plan you have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So similar question for somebody that's listening that is maybe in the early stages or maybe they're where you're at right now. What kind of advice would you give that person?
In any particular angle or just general advice?
Yeah. So, somebody that's trying to grow their business, they're stuck, they're frustrated, they're not really sure where to turn, what to do next.
I would say something that has really helped me is utilizing a sales process in a CRM. Early on, I've gotten so used to it now. I don't see how businesses survive without it. But I'm always surprised to talk to other business owners and production companies. They're like, well, we don't use anything. And so I think there's tons of missed opportunity out there if you're not using some kind of system. Now, I'm not going to, this is not a sponsored ad for, Active Campaign or anything like that. So I don't really care what system you use, just use a system that works for you. So there's not a perfect system out there, but like a business coach told me a long time ago, the best CRM system is the one you use. So if you find something that works for you right now, great. It's probably going to change and evolve over time. I've probably been through 2 or 3 different CRM platforms, but utilize some kind of system to keep all your stuff organized. When you're meeting people, prospective clients, enter that information, find a good system to keep track of them so that you can be following up with them, because only 3% of the market is ready to buy right now. That means the other 97% is not now. So a lot of people make the mistake of only looking for that 3% that are ready to buy right now. The average salesperson only wants to focus on that 3%. They don't care about the other 97. But you're doing, look how much you're leaving off the table. Look how much you're leaving by not focusing on that 97%. And but you also have to find some way to be managing that and tracking that and following up. There's some clients that I'm still following up with now, 2+ years later, that they have been, hey, now is not the right time. Circle back in 6 months. I make a note in my CRM system, and I'll actually follow back up with them. And you'd be surprised how many people will be surprised and really impressed, or rather, that you actually did follow through. You followed up. You said what you were going to do. You did what you said you were going to do. So putting together some kind of sales process using a CRM system is going to put, an early stage business miles, above, I would say, a lot of other early stage companies that are just kind of stumbling along, trying to figure it out, and not being super structured and organized about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I think I'm on like our 6th CRM. And today I was looking at another one. Oh, it's bad. But yes, using one is huge, and being able to keep in contact and know what you said last time, and having reminders. My early CRM was a yellow legal pad, and then that was a nightmare. But transition to a spreadsheet, and that was only a little bit better. And then I got like a digital version, and that helped huge.
Right. And then similar to that, something that I think has really helped me, achieve relative levels of success within the first, few years, and I say relatively, intentionally, is you have to learn how to run a business. So it's either you have to figure it out or you have to partner with someone who does know. You can't survive in business if you don't learn how to run a business. You don't know how to get clients. So with me, I didn't really start out as a super passionate filmmaker or a super savvy business person. I kind of figured both out, but I had to focus more on the sales and the business side because I had to. And so I started applying myself in this direction, really started, reading all the books, doing everything that I could get good at that. And I've gotten much better now as a result of that. And now I'm looking for someone to, kind of be my production partner, creative partner that could take the projects, that I'm bringing in. But I would say if you're, someone watching this earlier on, with a production company and kind of stuck, I would say, if you're struggling with sales and business, it's like you either need to read books and get mentors and figure out sales, or you need to find someone who can be that partner for you while you focus on what you're good at. Because that was something that was really valuable that someone told me early on, was asked me, what are you and only you good at? What's your biggest value to the company that you and only you can provide? And when I answered that question, it was be JM, run JM, do the same, the sales and the business side. I can always find people that are way more creative than I am to do the projects that I'm bringing in, but I can't find someone to replace me ultimately. So I need to step into that role. So that would be another big thing that comes to mind is just really figuring out what you're best at and where your irreplaceable value is to the business, and really grow in that and excel in that, and then find either someone or build a team that can help with the other things that maybe you're not as good at. But at some point, you got to learn how to run the business, because otherwise you're not going to be making much money. You're going to be looking for another job.
Yeah. And part of the, I think the stress could be like, oh shoot, well, I hate numbers, so I'm just going to hire somebody to take care of all of our budgeting and accounting and all that stuff. Part of running a business and having a business is you got to kind of have a basic understanding of all the elements of your business.
So one of the worst mistakes that you can make is being completely detached from your numbers and finances.
Yeah.
So there are horror stories upon horror stories of companies that just outsource all their financials to their CFO or an accounting firm, and they never look at it. They never pay attention to it, while their accounting firm is doing something they shouldn't be doing, and they can get get in a lot of trouble. So I completely agree that you have to have some level of understanding of how to read a profit and loss sheet, how to read a balance sheet, know what these things mean, and ultimately be able to look at it and say, okay, my numbers are really high here. How can I bring this down? What are contributing to these big costs? Where can we save some money to ultimately improve the bottom line? And kind of going along with that, I see businesses not only make mistakes with just being completely divorced of their finances and letting someone else handle that, but a lot of times it's tempting to think, if I just hire the salesperson and they do all of that for me, then that will be the solution. And I fell into that trap early on, and I've gone through 4 salespeople that did not work because I didn't have an effective model for that. And so that was a big mistake that I made early on, was just kind of throwing that sales responsibility to someone else and say, if I just pay him commission, then it'll all work out. And it doesn't work like that. And so I've lost a lot of money making poor choices like that, just not thinking through things very well, not being ready for, some of those jumps that I made. And, and ultimately I was able to rebound, but, had I not done some of those things, I would be in a little bit better position.
Yep. Love it. Shameless plug for the Studio Sherpas community. If you're listening and you're kind of in that spot where you're just like, man, I do need help, I can't figure this all out. That's what this community, this movement, whatever. That's why I started this thing, was to create a place where people could learn from each other. They could learn from my 8 million mistakes and learn what step can ask questions in a safe place of like, hey, here's where, I've got this much out on my line of credit. My credit cards are this much. I've made some mistakes. What are my options? What could I do? It's a place to not be embarrassed, but to just say like, here's where I'm at right now. I need help. And
right.
So
don't be afraid to ask for help. Like that's such a huge barrier to success, is not being willing to ask for help. Because I know that it can be hard and it can be embarrassing, to some degree, because you think, if I just had this or I had that, or, I'm not where this other production company is and I wish I was doing this. We all get caught up in that. No one's immune from it. But I think that is definitely something that has helped me with my business in these first 4 years is I've always been willing to ask for help, to be willing to say, hey, I'm not doing very well in this area. Can you help me with this? Seek out experts in these areas that you're not doing very well in, and be humble enough to admit that. And you're going to grow a lot as a result of that. And versus just acting like we all have it all together. We don't need any help bringing in clients. We don't need any help with financials or anything like that. I would encourage you to really be bold enough and humble enough to ask for that help, and you'll be surprised what people are willing to help you with and how much you can grow from that.
Yeah, that's great. Jon, how can people connect with you, find you, if they want to touch base with you after the show?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very active on social media. jmfilms.com is the website. I'm guessing you'll publish my contact info in some post email or something. So always happy to connect with other video guys or just people in general and offer my experience and if I can help in any way. But jmfilms.com's website. jmfilms. We have Facebook, Instagram. We don't really do much on Twitter, I'll be honest. So it's just Facebook and Instagram are the main social media channels.
Awesome. Final thought. What can you leave us with?
Oh, final thought. Something else I thought of real quick that I wish I would have done a little bit differently earlier on would be not to be so consumed with being perfect. That's something that I've struggled with a lot. Things can always be better. You can always have bigger clients, bigger budgets, better gear, better this, bigger that. And something that has kept me, I think, humble and keeping that in perspective over the years is just focus. I've just really tried to focus on doing a better job than I did on the last project. Just focus on doing good work, do a better job than you did last time, and you'll be surprised what that's going to do. Because it can be very crushing to just be always looking at all these other production companies doing better stuff than you, all the gear that you can't afford, all this stuff. Just ignore the noise. Just try to do a better job than you did last time and focus on doing good work and being a good person.
And staying off social media.
Can be the killer. Some philosopher or some famous person said that comparison is the enemy of joy, and that absolutely is true. I'm the worst at it because I get depressed. I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrible at all this stuff. But when I look back at my first project that I did compared to the project we just finished, it's unrecognizable. So just focus on the progress that you've made and be proud of that. And always just try to do better next time.
I love it. That's great. Jon, thanks so much for your time today. This was fun to hang out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always happy to be a resource.
Awesome. Cool, buddy. Take care. Talk soon. Okay, all of the show notes for this show, the links, the things that we talk about, you're going to want to go, and the video, if you want to watch the video, you're going to want to go to studiosherpas.com/143. And your homework, I'm going to give you homework again. It's to get a CRM if you don't already have one. And if you already do have one, to make sure that you are using it daily. Is that too much to ask? Or at the very, very least, weekly. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, if you need help, if you need a community, if you want help growing your video business, I want you to join my free workshop where you're going to learn how to book more high-paying video production clients, even if you hate sales. You can go to studiosherpas.com/workshop and sign up for it there. Hope to see you there. Next week on this show, Amina Moreau from Muse Storytelling and Still Motion, both of those companies. She's also partly responsible for helping me see so much more for myself, for this industry, for my business. She's on the show next week. Super excited. It was so fun to interview her. Take a listen at next week's episode.
Something that I really believe in with the Muse storytelling process is the idea of layers of place really representing something about a story. And like camera techniques or scene choices or character choices or backdrops or lighting ratios that all are a metaphor for something that you're trying to communicate. And so the books And your background, I actually don't, they're not an accident. It's not an accident that you chose that. I know that because you're a great storyteller. And this is not an accident either, because I do love learning. I do love reading. And there's a reason that, but I mean, I could have chosen a white wall. I could have chosen something outdoorsy and just used a lot of lighting to combat backlit window with bamboo in the background, which is just in the next room. But I think the way that we put ourselves forward as creatives, as entrepreneurs, and as people, they are the covers of our books.
All right, my friend. I hope to see you next week. Reach out. I would love to hear from you. And till then, remember that you have what it takes. Don't stand still in this business. Keep moving. Keep climbing. I am rooting for you big time. Talk to you soon. See ya.